been quite a bit. It's been a bit busy lately and just been sleeping very, very badly. So it's been a bit since I've streamed. Well, if you're hearing this, you're just watching the VoD, so we could also call it since I've just done anything in the likes. But yeah, I don't know, I had a hard time getting myself to take some time for it today. But I'm taking some time for it today. Wait, title kinda scuffed, let me see you have to enter the title real quick. Hello, Miss, how are ya? Hope you're well. Yeah, I don't know, probably not too long though, Miss. It's gonna have to see how it is in the new room, new setup, even closer to the road, so even more annoyances by the road. And I think my ring light doesn't have power right now, the cable's just not long enough to reach my PC, so it might go out in a bit. Although that's not too much of a problem-ish, since most of the light you're seeing right now, it's probably natural light anyway, since I don't have blackout curtains installed there yet, so it's a whole mess. Nice, enjoy the dog walk, enjoy. And yeah, it's pretty late there now. And hello to being gamer, how are ya? But yeah, so it's all kinda scuffed right now, and that's why I've not been live in a while either, and why I've had a hard time going live today. Just there's a lot, and I don't know, I just feel like quality is kinda down right now, and I mean not much I'm gonna change about me being close to the road, since I specifically went to this room from the room a bit further back in the house from the road. Mainly just so I could renovate that room. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot. Let me see, I did get a book beforehand, and I'm not quite sure what it's all about, but I did give it a quick skim through. It should be fine for us. Stuff goes. I was thinking I had the Blue Fairy book, edited by Andrew Lang. It's a collection apparently, I guess. Oh, they're very typical ones actually. I looked at the first title and didn't recognize that one. There's some very recognizable titles in there. Beauty and the Beast, Rumpelstiltskin, and the likes. And I actually don't think I've read those on our stream, so you know, might as well. To be fair, I don't think I've ever read those original tales, or I don't know how original they are from this book. I'm thinking this book would have the original ones. It's a pretty old book. Hey, Akarno, how are you doing? How are you? Also, it's pretty hot in here, so you're gonna have to see how long I last before I faint. So yeah, this room also just has more sun on it during the day. So gonna have to figure something out there. Oh well. But alright, let me just jump into the first little story. I think it's due time for it. Alright, I should also make some time to practice French today. Oh well, it's for later. The Bronze Ring. Once upon a time, in a certain country, there lived a king whose palace was surrounded by a spacious garden. But though the gardeners were many and the soil was good, this garden yielded neither flowers nor fruits, not even grass or shady trees. The king was in despair about it, when a wise old man said to him, "Your gardeners do not understand their business, but what can you expect of men whose fathers were cobblers and carpenters? How should they have learned to cultivate your garden?" "You're quite right," cried the king. "Therefore," continued the old man, "you should send for a gardener whose father and grandfather have been gardeners before him, and very soon your garden will be full of green grass and gay flowers, and you will enjoy its delicious fruits." So the king sent messengers to every town, village and hamlet in his dominions to look for a gardener whose forefathers had been gardeners also, and after 40 days one was found. "Come with us and be gardener to the king," they said to him. "How can I go to the king?" said the gardener, "a poor wretch like me." "That's of no consequence," they answered. "Here are new clothes for you and your family. But I owe money to several people." "We will pay your debts," they said. So the gardener allowed himself to be persuaded, and went away with the messengers, taking his wife and his son with him and the king, delighted to have found a real gardener, and trusted him with the care of his garden. The men found no difficulty in making the royal garden produce flowers and fruit, and at the end of a year the park was not like the same place, and the king showered gifts upon his new servant. The gardener, as you have heard already, had a son, who was a very handsome young man, with most agreeable manners, and every day he carried the best fruit in the garden to the king, and all the prettiest flowers to his daughter. Now this princess was wonderfully pretty, and was just 16 years old, and the king was beginning to think it was time that she should be married. "My dear child," said he, "you are of an age to take a husband, therefore I am thinking of marrying you to the son of my prime minister." "Father," replied the princess, "I will never marry the son of the prime minister." "Why not?" asked the king. "Because I love the gardener's son," answered the princess. On hearing this, the king was at first very angry, and then he wept and sighed, and declared that such a husband was not worthy of his daughter. But the young princess was not to be turned from her resolution to marry the gardener's son. And all those listening, how do you do? Good day, good day. Then the king consulted his ministers. "This is what you must do," they said. "To get rid of the gardener, you must send both suitors to a very distant country, and the one who returns first shall marry your daughter." The king followed his advice, and the minister's son was presented with a splendid horse and a purse full of gold pieces, while the gardener's son had only an old lame horse and a purse full of copper money, and everyone thought he could never come back from his journey. And although she cried, "Thank you for keeping me hydrated. And how do you do, how do you do? Oh wait, the bot doesn't find your, or didn't get your name yet. Let me fix that like. I should just have a not look up their name for. I don't know how I can fix it. I'll give her a look after the story actually. How about that? Setting the bot notion now after a message in chat. There you go. Hope you're well. Good day, good day. How was that 24-hour stream? How did it go? And the day before the two set off to that faraway land, the princess met her lover and said to him, "Be brave and remember always I love you. Take this purse full of jewels and make the best use you can of them. For love of me, and come back quickly and demand my hand." The two suitors left the town together, but the minister's son went off at a gallop on his good horse, and very soon was lost to sight behind the most distant hills. He travelled on for some days, and presently reached a fountain beside which an old woman in rags sat upon a stone. "Good day to you, young traveller," said she, but the minister's son never made a reply. "Have pity upon me, traveller," she said again. "I am dying of hunger, as you see, and 3 days I have been here, and no one has given me a thing." "Let me alone, old witch," cried the young man. "I can do nothing for you." And so saying, he went on his way. That same evening the gardener's son rode up to the fountain upon his lame grey horse. "Good day to you, young traveller," said the beggar woman. "Good day, good woman," answered the gardener's son. "Young traveller, have pity upon me. Take my purse, good woman," said he, "and mount behind me, for your legs can be very strong." The old woman didn't want to be asked twice, but mounted behind him, and in this style they reached the chief city of a powerful kingdom. The minister's son was lodged in a grand inn. The gardener's son and the old woman dismounted at the inn for beggars. The next day the gardener's son heard a great noise in the street, and the king's heralds passed, blowing all kinds of instruments and crying, "The king, our master, is old and infirm. He will give a great reward to whoever will cure him and give him back the strength as you." Then the old beggar woman said to her benefactor, "This is what you must do to obtain the reward which the king promises. Go out of the town by the south gate, and there you will find 3 little dogs of different colours. The first will be white, the second black, the third red. You must kill them and then burn them separately, and gather up the ashes. Put the ashes of each dog into a bag of its own collar, then go before the door of the palace and cry out, 'A celebrated physician has come from Janina in Albania. He alone can cure the king and give him back the strength of his youth.' The king's physicians will say there is an impostor and not a learned man, and he will make all sorts of difficulties, but you will overcome them all at last and will present yourself before the sick king. You must then demand as much wood as 3 mules can carry, and a great cauldron, and must shut yourself up in a room with the sultan, and when the cauldron boils you must throw him in dead, and there leave him until his flesh is completely separated from his bones. Then I arranged the bones in their proper place and threw over them the ashes out of the 3 bags. The king will come back to life and will be just as he was when he was 20 years old. For your demand you must demand the bronze ring which has the power to grant you everything you desire. Go, my son, and do not forget any of my instructions. The young man followed the old beggar woman's directions. On going out of the town he found the white rat and black dog, and burned them, gathering the ashes in 3 bags. Then he ran to the palace and cried, "The celebrated physician has just come from Janina in Albania. He alone can cure the king and give him back the strength as you." The king's physicians at first laughed at the unknown wayfarer, but the sultan ordered that the stranger should be admitted. They brought a cauldron and loads of wood, and very soon the king was boiling away. Toward midday the gardener's son arranged the bones in their places, and he had hardly scattered the ashes over them before the old king revived, to find himself once more young and hardy. "How can I reward you, my benefactor?" he cried. "Will you take half my treasures?" "No," said the gardener's son. "My daughter's hand? No." "Take half my kingdom?" "No, give me only the bronze ring, which can instantly grant me anything I wish for." "Alas," said the king, "I set great store by that marvellous ring, nevertheless you shall have it." And he gave it to him. The gardener's son went back to say goodbye to the old beggar woman. Then he said to the bronze ring, "Prepare a splendid ship in which I may continue my journey. Let the hull be of fine gold, a mass of silver, the sails of brocade. Let the crew consist of 12 young men of noble appearance, dressed like kings. St. Nicholas will be at the helm. As to the cargo, let it be diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and carbuncles." And immediately a ship appeared upon the sea, which resembled in every particular the description given by the gardener's son, and stepping on board, he continued his journey. Presently he arrived at a great town and established himself in a wonderful palace. After several days he met his rival, the minister's son, who had spent all her money and was reduced to the disagreeable employment of a carrier of dust and rubbish. The gardener's son said to him, "What is your name, what is your family, and from what country do you come?" "I am the son of the Prime Minister of a great nation, and yet see what a degrading occupation I am reduced to." "Listen to me, though. I don't know anything more about you. I'm willing to help you. I will give you a ship to take you back to your own country upon one condition. Whatever it may be, I accept it willingly. Follow me through my palace." The minister's son followed the rich stranger whom he had not recognized. When they reached the palace, the gardener's son made a sign to his servants, who completely undressed the newcomers. "Make this ring red hot," he commanded, "and mark the man with it upon his back." And so they did. "Now, young man," said the rich stranger, "I'm going to give you a vessel which will take you back to your own country." And going out, he took the bronze ring and said, "Bronze ring, obey thy master, prepare me a ship of which the half-rotten timber shall be painted black. Let the sails be in racks, and let the sailors inform it sickly. One shall have lost a leg, another an arm, the third shall be a hunchback, another lame or club-footed or blind, and most of them shall be ugly and covered with scars. Go, and that my orders be executed. The minister's son embarked on this old vessel, and thanks to favourable winds at length reached his own country. In spite of the pitiable condition in which he returned, they received him joyfully. "I am the first to come back," said he to the king. "Now fulfil your promise, and give me the princess in marriage." So they began at once to prepare for the wedding festivities. As to the poor princess, she was sorrowful and angry enough about it. The next morning at daybreak, a wonderful ship with every sail set came to anchor before the town. The king happened at that moment to be at her palace window. "What strange ship is this?" he cried. "There is a golden hull, silver mast, and silken sail. And who are the young men like Prince who man it? And do I not see St. Nicholas at the helm? Go at once and invite the captain of the ship to come to the palace." His servants obeyed him, and very soon in came an enchantingly handsome young prince, dressed in silk, ornamented with pearls and diamonds. "And hello, there is here. How do you do? Good day too." "Young man," said the king, "you are welcome wherever you may be. Permit a favour to be my guest as long as you remain in my capital." "Many thanks, sire," replied the captain. "I accept your offer." "My daughter is about to be married," said the king. "Will you give her away?" "I shall be charmed, sire." Soon after came the princess and her betrothed. "Why, how is this?" cried the young captain. "Would you marry this charming princess to such a man as that?" "But he is my prime minister's son." "What does that matter? I cannot give your daughter away. The man she is betrothed to is one of my servants." "Your servant?" "Oh, without doubt. I met him in a distant town, reduced to carrying away dust and rubbish from the house. I had pity on him and engaged him as one of my servants." "'Tis impossible," cried the king. "Do you wish me to prove what I say? This young man returned in a vessel which I fitted out for him, an unseaworthy ship with a black-bellied hull, and the sailors were infirm and crippled." "It is quite true," said the king. "'Tis false," cried the minister's son. "I do not know this man." "Oh, sire," said the young captain, "order your daughter's betrothed to be stripped, and see if the mark of my ring is not branded upon his back." The king was about to give this order when the minister's son, to save himself from such an indignity, admitted that the story was true. "And now, sire," said the young captain, "do you not recognize me?" "I recognize you," said the princess. "You are the gardener's son whom I've always loved, and 'tis you I wish to marry." "Young man, you shall be my son-in-law," said the king. "The marriage festivities are already begun, so you shall marry my daughter this very day." And so that very day the gardener's son married the beautiful princess. And hello, there ends Iman. Thank you for the follow. Several months passed. The young couple were happy as the day was long, and the king was more and more pleased with himself for having secured such a son-in-law. But presently the captain of the golden ship found it necessary to take a long voyage, and after embracing his wife tenderly, he embarked. Now in the outskirts of the capital there lived an old man would spend his life in studying black arts, alchemy, astrology, magic, and enchantment. This man found out that the gardener's son had only succeeded in marrying the princess by the help of the genii who obeyed the bronze ring. "I will have a ring," said he to himself, so he went down to the seashore and caught some little red fishes. Really, they were quite wonderfully pretty. Then he came back and, pausing before the princess's window, he began to cry out, "Who wants some pretty little red fishes?" The princess heard him and sent out one of her servants, who said to the old peddler, "What will you take for your fish?" "A bronze ring." "A bronze ring, old Simborum, and where shall I find one?" "Under the cushion in the princess's room." The servant went back to her mistress. "The old madman will take neither gold nor silver," said she. "What does she want then?" "A bronze ring that is hidden under a cushion." "Find the ring and give it to him," said the princess. And at last the servant found the bronze ring, which the captain of the golden ship had accidentally left behind, and carried it to the man, who made off with it instantly. Hardly had he reached his own house when, taking the ring, he said, "Bronze ring, obey thy master. I desire that the golden ship shall turn to black wood, and the crew to hideous, hideous crewmen. That Saint Nicholas shall leave the helm, and that the only cargo shall be black cats." And the genii of the bronze ring obeyed him. Finding himself upon the sea in this miserable condition, the young captain understood that someone must have stolen the bronze ring from him, and he lamented his misfortune quite loudly, but it did him no good. "Alas," he said to himself, "whoever has taken my ring has probably taken my dear wife also. What good will it do me to go back to my own country?" And he sailed about from island to island, from shore to shore, believing that wherever he went everybody was laughing at him, and very soon his poverty was so great that he and his crew and the poor black cats had nothing to eat but herbs and roots. After wandering about a long time, he reached an island inhabited by mice. The captain landed upon the shore and began to explore the country. There were mice everywhere, and nothing but mice. Some other black cats had followed him, and not having been fed several days, they were fearfully hungry, and made terrible havoc among the mice. Then the queen and the mice held a council. "These cats will eat every one of us," she said. "If the captain of the ship does not shut the ferocious animals up, let us send a reputation to him of the bravest among us." Several mice offered themselves for this mission, and set out to find the young captain. "Captain," said they, "go away quickly from our island, or we shall perish, every mouse of us." "Willingly," replied the captain, "upon one condition, that you shall first bring me back a bronze ring, which some clever magician has stolen from me. If you do not do this, I will land all my cats upon your island, and you shall be exterminated." The mice withdrew in great dismay. "What is to be done?" said the queen. "How can we find this bronze ring?" She held a new council, calling in mice from every quarter of the globe, but nobody knew where the bronze ring was. Suddenly 3 mice arrived from a very distant country. One was blind, the second lame, and the third had her ears cropped. "Ho, ho, ho," said the newcomers. "We come from a far distant country. Do you know what a bronze ring is which the genie obeyed? Ho ho ho, we know. Your old sorcerer has taken possession of it, and now he keeps it in his pocket by day and in his mouth by night. Go and take it from him and come back as soon as possible. So the three mice made themselves a boat and set sail for the magician's country. When they reached the capital, they landed and ran to the palace, leaving only the blind mouse on the shore to take care of the boat. Then they waited till it was night. The wicked old man lay down in bed and put the bronze ring into his mouth, and very soon he was asleep. Now what shall we do? Said the two little animals to each other. The mouse with the crop tears found a lamp full of oil and a bottle full of pepper. So she dipped her tail first into the oil and then into the pepper, and held it to the sorcerer's nose. The old man sneezed, but he did not wake, and the shock made the bronze ring jump out of his mouth. Quick as thought, the lame mouse snatched up the precious talisman and carried it off through the boat. Imagine the despair of the magician when he awoke, and the bronze ring was nowhere to be found. But by that time our three mice had set sail with their prize. A favouring breeze was carrying them toward the island where the queen of the mice was awaiting them. Naturally they began to talk about the bronze ring. Which has deserves the most credit, they cried all at once. I do, said the blind mouse, for without my watchfulness our boat would have drifted away through the open sea. No indeed, cried the mouse with the crop's hair. The credit is mine, did I not cause that ring to jump out of the man's mouth? No, 'tis mine, cried the lame one, for I ran off with the ring. And from high words they soon came to blows, and alas, when the quarrel was fiercest, the bronze ring fell into the sea. How are we to face our queen, said the three mice, when by our folly we have lost the talisman and condemned our people to be utterly exterminated? We cannot go back to our country, let us land on this desert island, and there end our miserable lives. No sooner said than done, the boat reached the island and the mice landed. The blind mouse was speedily discerned by her two sisters, who went off to hunt flies. But as she wandered sadly along the shore, she found a dead fish, and was eating it, when she felt something very hard. At her cries the other two mice ran up. "'Tis the bronze ring, 'tis the talisman," they cried joyfully, and getting into their boat again they soon reached the Mouse Island. It was time they did, for the captain was just going to land his cargo of cats, when a deputation of mice brought him the precious ring. "Now, bronze ring," commanded the young man, "obey thy master, let my ship appear as it was before." Immediately the genii of the ring set to work, and the old broken vessel became once more the wonderful golden ship with sails of brocade, where the handsome sailors render a silver mast and a silken robes, and very soon they set sail for the capital. Ah, how merrily the sailors sang as they flew over the glassy sea. At last the port was reached. The captain landed and ran to the palace, where he found the wicked old man asleep. The princess clasped her husband in a long embrace. The magician tried to escape, but he was seized and bound with strong cords. The next day the sorcerer, tied to the tail of a savage mule, loaded with nuts, was broken into as many pieces as there were nuts upon the mule's back. That's kind of an abrupt end to that fairy tale. And I'm also trying to find like a... should be a good lesson in a fairy tale, right? Can't really see one on that one, but maybe that's just me. Maybe let's be a jerk, fight over a bronze ring that does everything you want, and you'll be successful in life. That doesn't sound entirely right, but... Also, let me try something real quick, since I'm getting kinda dark. Let me see if I can charge my ring light actually from my laptop. Since the cable is kinda short, I should get a different cable for it. Don't actually mute for that. Try and do that real quick. One sec. I don't know, I don't really see it charging. Maybe if I just turn it on, it'll stay. Although, I don't know, it doesn't help me that much. Like a ring light does great when it's just a ring light, but the outside natural light is so much brighter that it ends up not really doing much either way. Anyways, I hope it might be charging from that. I don't really feel like it is, to be honest. We'll see if it stays on. If not, then the side of my face will just be kinda not lighted too very well, but well, alright. I'll just take that, I guess. Also, small update. It is getting quite hot in there, so probably gonna be a short stream, like 2 hours or so. I'll have to see. Gonna have to just short stream it through the summer, I guess. Since I can't really put like air conditioning on either. Not during ASMR at least. Or I need to take little breaks in between every now and then to throw on the AC. Maybe that's possible. But alright, let me see what story to jump into next. I'm actually just going through the index real quick, having a little look what is in there. Anything that sounds especially interesting. The Master Cat or Puss in Boots. I don't think I really know the story of the Puss in Boots too well, so sure, why not that one? There was a miller who left no more estate to the 3 sons he had than his mill, his ass, and his cat. The partition was soon made, neither scrivener nor attorney was sent for. They would soon have eaten up all the poor patrimony, the eldest at the mill, the second the donkey, and the youngest nothing but a cat. The poor young fellow was quite comfortless at having so poor a lot. My brother, said he, may get their living handsomely enough by joining the stocks together, But for my part, when I have eaten of my cat, and made me a muff asking, I must die of hunger. The cat who heard all this, but made it if he did not, said to him with a grave and serious air, "Do not thus afflict yourself, my good master. You have nothing else to do but to give me a bag and get a pair of boots made for me, that I may scamper through the door in the bramble, and you shall see that you are not so bad a portion in me as you imagine." The cat's master did not build very much upon what he sat. He had often seen him play a great many cunning tricks to catch rats and mice, as when he used to hang by the heels, or hide himself in the meal, and make as if he were that, so that he did not altogether despair of his affording him some help in his miserable condition. When the cat had what he asked for, he booted himself very gallantly, and putting his bag about his neck, he held the strings of it in his 2 forepaws, and went into a warren, where was a great abundance of rabbits. He put bran and sow thistle into his bag, and stretching out at length, as if he had been dead, he waited for some young rabbits not yet acquainted with the deceit of the world, to come and rummage his bag for what he had put into it. Scarce was he laid down, but he had what he wanted. A rash and foolish young rabbit jumped into his bag, and Monsieur Puss, immediately drawing close strings, took and killed him without pity. Proud as prey, he went with it to the palace, and asked to speak with his majesty. He was shown upstairs into the king's apartment, and, making a low reverence, said to him, "I have brought you, sir, a rabbit of the warren which my noble lord the Marquis of Carabas," for that was the title in which Puss was pleased to give his master, "has commanded me to present to your majesty from him." "Well, towering master," said the king, "I thank him, and that he does me a great deal of pleasure." Another time he went and hid himself among some standing corn, holding still his bag open. And when a brace of partridges ran into it, he drew the strings and so caught them both. He went and made a present of these to the king, as he had done before of the rabbit which he took in the warren. The king, in like manner, received the partridges with great pleasure, and ordered him some money for drink. And hello, Lavvy, thank you for a follow. Good day, good day. The cat continued for 2 or 3 months thus to carry his majesty. From time to time game of his master's taking, one day in particular when he knew for certain that he was to take through the air along the riverside with his daughter, the most beautiful princess in the world. Then he said to his master, "If you will follow my advice, your fortune is made. You have nothing else to do but go and wash yourself in the river. In that part I shall show you, and leave the rest to me." And hello, Corvo, how do you do? Good day, and thank you for the follow. Oh, sorry to hear that secret, but don't you worry. It happens, it's just the way I like. Relationships are like ebb and flow. I'm good. And the Marquis of Carabas did what a cat advised him to do, without knowing why or wherefore. While he was washing, the king passed by, and the cat began to cry out, Help, help, my Lord Marquis of Carabas is going to be drowned. At this noise the king put his head out of the coach window, and finding it was the cat who had so often brought him such good game, he commanded his guards to run immediately to the assistance of his lordship, the Marquis of Carabas. While they were drawing the poor Marquis out of the river, the cat came up through the coach and tore the king that, while his master was washing, there came by some rogues, who went off with his clothes, though he had cried out, "Thieves, thieves," several times as loud as he could. This cunning cat had hidden them under a great stone. The king immediately commanded the officers of his wardrobe to run and fetch one of his best suits for the Lord Marquis of Carabas. The king caressed him after a very extraordinary manner, and as the fine clothes he had given him extremely set off his good man, for he was well made and very handsome in the person. The king's daughter took a secret inclination to him, and the Marquis of Carabas had no sooner cast 2 or 3 respectful and somewhat tender glances, but she fell in love with him to distraction. The king would needs have him come into the coach and take part of the airing. The cat, quite overjoyed to see his project begin to succeed, marched on before, and meeting with some countrymen who were mowing a meadow, he said to them, "Good people, you are mowing. If you do not tell the king that the meadow you mow belongs to my Lord Marquis of Carabas, you shall be chopped as small as herbs for the pot." The king did not fail asking of the mowers to whom the meadow they were mowing belonged. "To my Lord Marquis of Carabas," answered they all together, for the cat's threats had made them terribly afraid. "You see, sir," said the Marquis, "this is a meadow which never fails to yield a plentiful harvest every year." The master cat who went still before met with some reapers and said to them, "Good people, you are reaping. If you do not tell the king that all this corn belongs to the Marquis of Carabas, you shall be chopped as small as herbs for the pot." The king, who passed by a moment after, would needs know to whom all that corn, which he then saw that belonged. "To my Lord Marquis of Carabas," replied the reapers, and the king was very well pleased with it, as well as the Marquis, whom he congratulated thereupon. The master cat, who went always before, said the same words to all he met, and the king was astonished at the fast estate of my Lord Marquis of Carabas. Monsieur Puss came at last to a stately castle, the master of which was an ogre, the richest had ever been known, for all the land which the king had then gone over belonged to this castle. The cat, who had taken care to inform himself who this ogre was and what he could do, asked to speak with him, saying he could not pass so near his castle without having the honour of paying his respects to him. The ogre received from as civilly as an ogre could do, and made him sit down. "I have been assured," said the cat, "that you have a gift of being able to change yourself into all sorts of creatures. You have a mind to. You can, for example, transform yourself into a lion or elephant and a lion." "That is true," answered the ogre very briskly. "And to convince you, you shall see me now become a lion." Puss was so sadly terrified at the sight of a lion so near him that he immediately got into the gutter, not without abundance of trouble and danger, because of his boots, which were of no use at all to him in walking upon the tiles. A little while after, when Puss saw that the ogre had resumed his natural form, he came down and owned him, and owned he had been very much frightened. I have been moreover informed, said the cat, but I know not how to believe it, that you have also the power to take on you the shape of the smallest animals, for example, to change yourself into a rat or a mouse, but I must own to you I take this to be impossible. Impossible, cried the ogre, you shall see that presently. And at the same time he changed himself into a mouse, and began to run about the floor. Puss no sooner perceived this, but he fell upon him and ate him. Meanwhile the king, who saw as he passed this fine castle of the ogre, had a mind to go into it. Puss, who heard the noise of his majesty's coach running over the broad drawbridge, ran out and said to the king, "Your majesty is welcome to this castle of my lord Marquis of Carabas." "What, my lord Marquis," cried the king, "does this castle also belong to you? There can be nothing finer than this old court and all the stately buildings which surround it. Let us go into it, if you please." The Marquis gave his hand to the princess and followed the king, who went first. They passed into a spacious hall, where they found a magnificent collation, which the ogre had prepared for his friends, who were that very day to visit him, but dared not to enter, knowing the king was there. His majesty was perfectly charmed with the good qualities of my lord Marquis of Carabas. That was his daughter, who had fallen violently in love with him, and seeing the vast estate he possessed, said to him, after having drunk 5 or 6 glasses, "I will be owing to yourself only, my lord Marquis, if you are not my son-in-law." The Marquis, making several low bows, accepted the honour which his majesty conferred upon him, and forthwith that very same day married the princess. Puss became a great lord and never ran after mice any more, but only for his diversion. And that's interesting. Wonder, I mean, sounds like this possibly could be the first origin of the Puss in Boots-like character. I don't know, there's an old tale, I'm pretty sure. Charles Perrault, I think it's attributed to. Yeah, from quite a while back. Around the 1600s, apparently. But alright, it's also getting quite hot here, so I think one more little fairy tale, then some thunder to finish off the day. And I'll finish the stream there, maybe not even 2 hours, maybe more 1 hour and a half. And do kinda need to cool down already. This room being quite hot indeed. So, I'll have a quick look at the index, see what interesting tale names jump out at me there. So, I mean, I know a lot of these old tales actually, but I don't think I've ever really read them per se, so like the story of Pretty Goldilocks, I'm pretty sure I've never actually read the proper story. And Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp, Cinderella or the Little Glass Slipper. I mean, I'm certain I know pretty much the whole story, A little Red Riding Hood is in there as well. Robustilsk and Beauty and the Beast. But I actually don't think I've ever read any of those, like at least not the original writing. Just trying to think what I do know from them, but I think more like other media. Right, usually. Let's see, let's maybe go with a title that I don't quite recognize, but it does sound interesting. Let me just have a quick look through how long this one is. Not too long, I think it's alright. It's a bit long, but it's alright. I'll probably be less stoned after it, but so let me just jump into The Wonderful Sheep, a fairy tale. Once upon a time in the days when the fairies lived, there was a king with 3 daughters, who were all young and clever and beautiful. But the youngest of the 3 was called Miranda, the prettiest and the most beloved. The king, her father, gave her more dresses and jewels in a month than he gave the others in a year. But she was so generous that she shared everything with her sisters. And they were all so happy and as fond of one another as they could be. But the king and some quarrelsome neighbours, who, tired of leaving him in peace, began to make war upon him so fiercely that he feared he would be altogether beaten if he did not make an effort to defend himself. So he collected a great army and set off to fight them, leaving the princesses for their governess in a castle where news of the war was brought every day. Sometimes the king had taken a town or won a battle, and at last he had altogether overcome his enemies and chased him out of his kingdom, and was coming back through the castle as quickly as possible to see his dear little Miranda, whom he loved so much. The 3 princesses put on dresses of satin, which they had made on purpose for this great occasion, one green, one blue, and the 3rd white. Their jewels were the same colours. The eldest wore emeralds, the 2nd turquoise, and the youngest diamond, and thus adorned they went to meet the king, singing verses which he had composed about his victory. When he saw them all so beautiful and so lovely, he embraced them tenderly, but gave Miranda more kisses than either of the others. Presently a splendid banquet was served, and the king and his daughter sat down to eat it. As he always thought there was some special meaning in everything, he said to the others, "Tell me why you have chosen a green dress." "Sire," she answered, "having heard of your victories, I thought that green would signify my joy and the hope of your speedy return." "That is a very good answer," said the king. "And you, my daughter," he continued, "why did you take a blue dress?" "Sire," said the princess, "be sure that we constantly hope for your success, and that the sight of you is as welcome to me as the sky with its most beautiful stars." "Why," said the king, "your wise answer astonished me, and you, Miranda, what made you dress yourself all in white?" "Because, sire," she answered, "white suits me better than anything else." "Wait, what?" said the king angrily. "Was that all you thought of, vain child?" "I thought you would be pleased with me," said the princess, that was all. The king, who loved her, was satisfied with this, and even pretended to be pleased that she had not told him all her reasons at first. And now, said he, as I have supped well, and there is no time yet to go to bed, tell me what you dreamed last night. The hour sat she had dreamed of the broader dress, and the precious stones and gold embroidery on it were brighter than the sun. The dream for a second was of the king and brother, a spinning wheel and a distaff, that she might spin him some shirt. But her youngest said, I dreamed that my second sister was to be married, and on her wedding day you, father, had a golden ewer and said, Come, Miranda, and I will hold the water that you may dip your hands in it. The king was very angry indeed when he heard this dream, and frowned horribly. Indeed, he made such an ugly face that everyone knew how angry he was, and he got up and went off to bed in a great hurry. But he could not forget his daughter's dream. As the proud girl wished to make me her servant, he said to himself, I am not surprised at her choosing to dress herself in white satin without a thought of me. She does not think me worthy of her consideration, but I will soon put an end to her pretensions. He arose in a fury, and although it was not yet daylight, he sent for the captain of his bodyguard and said to him, You have heard the Prince Marinus' dream. I consider that it means strange things against me. Therefore I order you to take her away into the forest and kill her, and that I may be sure it is done, you must bring me your heart and her tongue. If you attempt to receive me, you shall be put to death. Some pretty hardcore fairy tales here, by the way. And hello, Espetina, and thank you for the follow. Good day, good day. And hello, JD, how do you do? Good day. How are you? The captain of the guard was very much astonished when he heard the barber's orders, but he did not dare to contradict the king, for the fear of making him still more angry, or causing him to send someone else. So he answered that he would fetch the princess and do as the king had said. When he went to her room, they would hardly let him in. It was so early, but he said that the king had sent for Miranda, and she got up quickly and came out. A little girl called Paripara held up her train and her pet monkey, and her little dog ran after her. The monkey was called Rabunjin, and the little dog Tintin. Hello, Miss Annabelle, how do you do, how do you do? The captain of the guard begged Miranda to come down into the garden, where the king was enjoying the fresh air, and when they got there he pretended to search for him, but as he was not to be found, he said, Rode out with his majesty strode into the forest, and he opened the little door that led to her, and they went through. By this time the daylight had begun to appear, and the princess, looking at her conductor, saw red tears in his eyes, and seemed to set to speak. What's the matter? She said in the kindest way. You seem very sorrowful. Alas, princess, he answered, who would not be sorrowful who was ordered to do such a terrible thing as I am? The king has commanded me to kill you here and carry your heart and your tongue to him, and if I disobey, I shall surely lose my life. Looking up, the poor princess was terrified. She grew very pale and began to cry softly. Looking up at the captain of the guard with her beautiful eyes, she said gently, You really have the heart to kill me. I have never done you any harm, and have always spoken well of you to the king. If I had deserved my father's anger, I would suffer without a murmur, but alas, He is unjust to complain of me, when I have always treated him with love and respect. Fear nothing, princess, said the captain of the guard. I would far rather die myself than hurt you, but even if I am killed, you will not be safe. You must find some way of making the king believe that you are dead. What can we do, said Miranda. Unless you take in my heart and my tongue, you will never believe you. The princess and the captain of the guard were talking so earnestly that they did not think of Parapara, which had overheard all they said, and now came and threw herself at Miranda's feet. Madam, she said, I offer you my life, let me be killed. I shall be only too happy to die for such a kind mistress. Why, Paripara, cried the princess, kissing her, that would never do. Your life is as precious to me as my own, especially after such a proof of your affection as you have just given me. You are right, princess, said Grambungian, coming forward. To love such a faithful servant as Parapara, she is more used to you than I am. I offer you my tongue and my heart most willingly, especially as I wish to make a great name for myself in Goblinland. No, no, my little Grambungian, replied Miranda, I cannot bear the thought of taking your life. Such a good little dog as I am, cried Tintin, cannot think of letting either of you die for his mistress. If anyone is to die for her, it must be me. And then began a great dispute between Parapara the servant, Grambungian their monkey, and Tintin their dog. They came to high words until at last Grambungian, who was quicker than the others, ran up to the very top of the nearest tree and let herself fall head first to the ground, and there she lay quite dead. The princess was very sorry, but as Grambungian was really dead, she allowed the captain of the guard to take her tongue, but alas, it was such a little one, none bigger than the princess's thumb, that they decided sorrowfully that it was of no use at all. The king would not have been taken in by it for a moment. Alas, my little monkey, cried the princess, I have lost you, and yet I am no better off than I was before. The honour of saving your life is to be mine, interrupted Parapara, and before they could prevent her, she had picked up a knife. But when the captain of the guard would have taken her tongue, it turned out to be quite black, so it wouldn't have deceived the king either. Am I not unlucky? Cried the poor princess. I lose everything I love, and am none the better for it. If you had accepted my offer, said Tintin, you would only have had me to regret, and I should have had all your gratitude. Miranda kissed the little dog, crying so bitterly that at last she could bear it no longer, and turned away into the forest. When she looked back, the captain of the guard was gone, and she was alone, except for Parapara and Grambungian and Tintin, who lay upon the ground. She could not leave her place until she had buried them in a pretty little mossy grave at the foot of a tree, and she wrote their names upon the bark of the tree, and how they had all died to save her life. And then she began to think where she could go for safety, for this forest was so close to her father's castle that she might be seen and recognized by the first passer-by, and besides that, it was full of lions and wolves, who would have snapped up a princess just as soon as a stray chicken. So she began to walk as fast as she could, but the forest was so large and the sun was so hot that she nearly died of heat and terror and fatigue. Look which way she would, there seemed to be no end to the forest, and she was so frightened that she fancied every minute that she heard the king running after her to kill her. You may imagine how miserable she was, and how she cried as she went on, not knowing which path to follow. There were thorny bushes, scratching her dreadfully and tearing her pretty frock to pieces. At last she heard the bleating of a sheep, and said to herself, "No doubt there are shepherds here with their flocks, for they will show me a way to some village where I can live disguised as a peasant girl. Alas, it is not always kings and princes who are the happiest people in the world. Who could have believed that I should ever be obliged to run away and hide because the king, for no reason at all, wishes to kill me?" So saying, she advanced toward the place where she heard the bleating. But what was her surprise when in a lovely little glade, quite surrounded by trees, she saw a large sheep. Its wool was as white as snow, and its horns shone like gold, with a garland of flowers around its neck, and strings of great pearls about its legs, had a colour of diamond. It lay upon a bank of orange flowers under a canopy of cloth of gold, which protected it from the heat and the sun. Nearly 100 other sheep were scattered about, not eating the grass, but some drinking coffee, lemonade, or sherbet, before eating ices, strawberries, and cream or sweetmeat, while others again were playing games. Many of them wore golden collars with jewels, flowers, and ribbons. Miranda stood short in amazement at this unexpected sight, and was looking in all directions for the shepherd of this surprising flock, where a beautiful sheep came bounding towards her. "Approach, lovely princess," he cried, "have no fear of such gentle and peaceable animals as we are." "What a marvel!" cried the princess, starting back a little. "Here is a sheep that can talk." "Your monkey and your dog could talk, madam," said he. "Are you more astonished at us than at them?" "The fairy gave them the power to speak," replied Miranda, "so I was used to them." "Perhaps the same thing has happened to us," he said, smiling sheepishly. "But princess, what can have let you here?" "1,000 misfortunes, sir sheep," she answered. I am the unhappiest princess in the world, and I am seeking a shelter against my father's anger." "Come with me, madam," said the sheep. "I offer you a hiding place which you only will know, and where you will be mistress of everything you see." "I really cannot follow you," said Miranda, "for I am too tired to walk another step." And the sheep with the golden horns ordered that his chariot should be fetched, and the moment after appeared 6 goats harnessed to a pumpkin. It was so big that 2 people could quite well sit in it. It was all lined with cushions of velvet and down. The princess stepped into it, much amused at such a new kind of carriage. The king of the sheep took his place beside her, and the goats ran away with him at full speed, and only stopped when they reached a cavern, the entrance to which was blocked by a great stone. This the king touched with his foot, and immediately it fell down, and he invited the princess to enter without fear. Now, if she had not been so alarmed by everything that had happened, nothing could have induced her to go into this frightful cave. But she was so afraid of what might be behind her that she would have thrown herself even down a well at this moment. So without hesitation she followed the sheep, who went before her down, 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 until she thought they must come out at the other side of the world. Indeed, she was not sure they wasn't leading her into fairyland. At last she saw before her a great plain, quite covered with all sorts of flowers, the scent of which seemed to her nicer than anything she'd ever smelled before. A broad river of orange flower. Water flowed around it, and fountains of wine of every kind ran in all directions and made the prettiest little cascades and brooks. The plain was covered with the strangest trees. There were whole avenues where partridges already roasted hung from every branch, or if you preferred pheasants, quails, turkeys, or rabbits, you were only to turn to the right hand or to the left, and you were sure to find them. In places the air was darkened by showers of lobster patties, white pudding, sausages, tarts, and all sorts of sweetmeats, or with pieces of gold and silver, diamonds and pearls. This unusual kind of rain and the pleasantness of the whole place would no doubt have attracted a number of people to it. If the king of the sheep had been of a more sociable disposition, but from all accounts it is evident that he was as grave as a judge. And hello, Dill, how do you do, how do you do? And for anyone wondering, Dill makes some ASMR as well, so give him a follow. It was quite the nicest time of the year when Miranda arrived. In this delightful land, the only place she saw was a long row of orange trees, jasmines, honeysuckles, and monk roses, and their interlacing branches made the prettiest rooms possible, which were hung with gold and silver gauze, and with great mirrors and candlesticks and most beautiful pictures. The wonderful sheep begged that the princess would consider herself queen over all that she saw, and assured her that though for some years he had been very sad and in great trouble, she had it in her power to make him forget all his grief. Oh, well, sounds like it's time to relax and get a nice nap in. You are so kind and generous, noble sheep, said the princess, that I cannot thank you enough, but I must confess that all I see here seems to me so extraordinary that I don't know what to think of it. As she spoke, a band of lovely fairies came up and offered her amber baskets full of fruit, but when she held out her hands to them, they glided away, and she could feel nothing when she tried to touch them. "Oh," she cried, "what can they be? Whom am I with?" And she began to cry. At this instant the king of the sheep came back to her and was so distracted to find her in tears that he could have torn his wool. "What is the matter, lovely princess?" he cried. "Does anyone fail to treat you with due respect?" "Oh no," said Miranda, "only I am not used to living with sprites or with sheep that talk, and everything here frightens me. It was very kind of you to bring me to this place, but I shall be even more grateful to you if you will take me up into the world again." "Do not be afraid," said the wonderful sheep. "I entreat you to have patience and listen to the story of my misfortunes. I was once a king, and my kingdom was the most splendid in the world. My subjects loved me, my neighbours envied me and feared me. I was respected by everyone, and it was said that no king ever deserved it more. I was very fond of hunting, and one day while chasing a stag, I left my attendants far behind. Suddenly I saw the animal leap into a pool of water, and I rashly urged my horse to follow it. But before we had gone many steps, I felt an extraordinary heat out of the coolness of the water. The pond dried up, a great gulf opened before me, out of which flames of fire shot up, and I fell helplessly to the bottom of a precipice. I gave myself up for lost, but presently a voice said, "Ungrateful prince, even this fire is hardly enough to warm your cold heart. Who complains of my coldness? In this dismal place," I then cried. "And an unhappy being who loves you hopelessly," replied the voice. At the same moment the flames began to flicker and ceased to burn, and I saw a fairy, whom I had known as long as I could remember, and whose ugliness had always horrified me. She was leaning upon my arm with a most beautiful young girl, who wore chains of gold on her wrists that was evidently her servant. And alright, since this is all a wonderful sheep just talking to the Miranda, let me just keep her in the middle. If I keep it all on the right at all time, it's a bit one-sided. Let me add a bit of reverb though, why not? "Why, Regot," I said, for that was the fairy's name, "what is the meaning of all this? Is it by your orders that I am here?" "And whose fault is it," she answered, "that you have never understood me until now? Must a powerful fairy like myself condescend to explain her doings to you, who are no better than an ant by comparison? Do you think yourself a great king?" "Call me what you like," I said impatiently, "but what is it that you want? My crown or my cities, or my treasures?" "Treasures," said the fairy disdainfully. "If I chose I could make any more of my scions richer and more powerful than you. I do not want your treasures, but," she added softly, "if you will give me your heart, if you will marry me, I will add 20 kingdoms to the one you already have. You shall have 100 castles full of gold and 500 full of silver, and in short anything you like to ask me for." "Madame Ragout," said I, "when one is at the bottom of a pit, where one is fully expected to be roasted alive, it is impossible to think of asking such a charming person as you to marry one. I beg that you will set me at liberty, and then I shall hope to answer you fittingly." "Ah," said she, "if you really loved me, you would not care where you were, a cave, a wood, a foxhole, and desert would please you equally well. Do not think you can deceive me. You fancy you are going to escape, but I assure you that you are going to stay here, and the first thing I shall give you to do will be to keep my sheep. They are very good company and speak quite as well as you do." As she spoke she advanced and led me to this plain where we now stand, and showed me her flock, but I paid little attention to her or to her. To tell the truth, I was so lost in admiration of her beautiful servant I forgot everything else, and the cruel Regot, perceiving this, turned upon her so furious and terrible a look that she fell lifeless to the ground. At this dreadful sight I drew my sword and rushed at Regot, and should certainly have cut off her head had she not by her magic arts chained me to the spot on which I stood. All my efforts to move were useless. At last, when I threw myself down on the ground in despair, she said to me with a scornful smile, "I intend to make you feel my power. It seems that you are a lion at present. I mean you to be a sheep." So saying, she touched me with her wand, and I became what you see. I did not lose the power of speech or of feeling the misery of my present state. "For 5 years," Regot said, "you shall be a sheep and lord of this pleasant land, while I, no longer able to see your face, which I love so much, so we better able to hate you as you deserve to be hated. She disappeared as she finished speaking, and if I had not been too unhappy to care about anything, I should have been glad that she was gone. The talking sheep received me as their king and told me that they too were an unfortunate princess who had in different ways offended the revengeful fairy, and had been added to her flock for a certain number of years, some more, some less, from time to time indeed. One regains his own proper form and goes back again to his place in the upper world. But the other beings whom you saw are the rivals or the enemies of her ago, whom she has imprisoned for 100 years or so, though even they will go back at last. The young servant of whom I told you about is one of these. I have seen her often, and it has been a great pleasure to me. She never speaks to me, and if I were nearer to her, I know I should find her only a shadow, which would be very annoying. However, I noticed that one of my companions in misfortune was also very attentive to his little sprite, and I found out that he had been her lover, whom the crew ago had taken away from her long before. Since then I have cared for and thought of nothing but how much I might regain my freedom. I have often been in the forest, that is where I have seen you, lovely princess, sometimes driving your chariot, which you did with all the grace and skill in the world, sometimes riding to the chase on so spirited a horse that it seemed as if no one but yourself could have managed it, and sometimes running races on the plain with the princesses of your court, running so lightly that it was you always who won the prize. Oh, princess, I have loved you so long, and yet, how dare I tell you of my love? What hope can there be for an unhappy sheep like myself? Miranda was so surprised and confused by all that she had heard that she hardly knew what answer to give for the king of the sheep, but she managed to make some kind of little speech, which certainly did not forbid him to hope, and said that she should not be afraid of the shadows, though she knew that they would some day come to life again. Alas, she continued. I still had the river bump, but I was sad. The wonderful sheep was done talking for now. Alas, Miranda continued, if my poor Paripara, my dear Gramungeon, and pretty little Tintin who will die for my sake were equally well off, I should have nothing left to wish for her. Prisoner though he was, the king of the sheep had still some powers and privileges. Go, said he to his master of the horse, go and seek the shadows of the little girl among in the dark. They will amuse our princess. And an instant afterward Miranda saw him coming toward her, and their presence gave her the greatest pleasure, though they did not come near enough for her to touch them. The king of the sheep was so kind, and amazing, and amusing, and loved Miranda so dearly, that at last she began to love him too. Such a handsome sheep, who was so polite and considerate, could hardly fail to please, especially if one knew that he was really a king and that a strange imprisonment would soon come to an end. So the princess's days passed very gaily while she waited for a happy time to come. The king of the sheep, with the help of all the flock, could have balls, concerts and hunting parties, and even the shadows joined in all the fun, and came making believe to be their own real self. And hello, Musy, thank you for a follow, hope you're well. One evening when the couriers arrived, for the king sent mostly carefully for news, and they always brought the very best kind, It was announced that the sister of Princess Miranda was going to be married to a great prince, and that nothing could be more splendid in all the preparations for the wedding. "Ah," cried the young princess, "how unlucky I am to miss the sight of so many pretty things. Here am I imprisoned under the earth, with no company but sheep and shadow. And my sister is to be adored like a queen, and surrounded by all love and admirer, and everyone but myself can go to wish her joy." "Why do you complain, princess?" said the king of the sheep. "Did I say that you were not to go through the wedding? Set out as soon as you please, only promise me that you will come back, for I love you too much to be able to live without you." Miranda was very grateful to him, and promised faithfully that nothing in the world should keep her from coming back. The king caused an escort suitable to her rank to be got ready for her, and she dressed herself splendidly, not forgetting anything that could make her more beautiful. Her chariot was a mother of pearl, drawn by 6 dun-coloured griffins, just brought from the other side of the world, and she was attended by a number of guards in splendid uniforms, who were all at least 8 feet high, and had come from far and near to ride in the princess' train. Miranda reached her father's palace just as the wedding ceremony began, and everyone as soon as she came in was struck with surprise at her beauty and the splendour of her jewels. She heard exclamations of admiration on all sides, and the king, her father, looked at her so attentively that she was afraid he must recognize her. But he was so sure that she was that the idea never occurred to him. However, the fear of not getting away made her leave before the marriage was over. She went out hastily, leaving behind her a little coral casket set with emeralds. On it was written in diamond letters, "Jewels for the bride." And when they opened it, which they did as soon as it was found, there seemed to be no end to the pretty things it contained. The king, who had hoped to join the unknown princess and find out who she was dreadfully disappointed when she disappeared so suddenly, and gave orders that if she ever came again, the doors were to be shut, that she might not get away so easily. Short as Miranda's absence had been, yet it seemed like 100 years to the king of the sheep. He was waiting for her by a fountain in the thickest part of the forest, and the ground was strewn with splendid presents which he had prepared for her to show his joy and gratitude at her coming back. As soon as she was inside, he rushed to meet her, leaping and bounding like a real sheep. He caressed her tenderly, throwing himself at her feet and kissing her hands, and told her how uneasy he had been in her absence, and how impatient for her return with an eloquence which charmed her. After some time came the news that the king's second daughter was going to be married likewise. When Miranda heard it, she begged the king of the sheep to allow her to go and see the wedding as before. This request made him feel very sad, that if some misfortune must surely come of it, but his love for the princess was being stronger than anything else, he did not like to refuse her. And hello, Johnny Rebel, thank you for the follow, and hello, Short Prince. Just reading from the collection right now. This is currently the Wonderful Sheep. I think we're quite far in it. And wow, it's getting really hot in here, streaming and all as well. And the sun shining quite brightly, so I might end off this story, a bit of Thunder after maybe to finish it off. And thank you, Johnny, for keeping me hydrated. Good day, good day. You wish to leave me, princess, said he. It is my unhappy fate, you are not to blame. I consent to your going, but believe me, I can give you no stronger proof of my love than by so doing. The princess assured him that she would only stay a very short time as she had done before, and begged him not to be uneasy, as she would be quite as much grieved if anything detained her as he could possibly be. So with the same escort, she set out and reached the palace as the marriage ceremony began. Everybody was delighted to see her. She was so pretty that they thought she must be some fairy princess, and the princes over there could not take their eyes off her. The king was more glad than anyone else that she had come again, and gave orders that the door should all be shut and boarded that very minute. When the wedding was all but over, the princess got up quickly, hoping to slip away unnoticed among the crowd, but, to her great dismay, she found every door fastened. She felt more at ease when the king came up to her, and with the greatest respect begged her not to run away so soon, but at least to honour him by staying for a splendid feast which was prepared for the princess and princess. He led her into a magnificent hall, where all the court was assembled, and himself taking up the golden ball full of water, he offered it to her that she might dip her pretty fingers into it. At this the princess could no longer contain herself. Throwing herself at the king's feet, she cried out, "My dream has come true after all. You have offered me water to wash my hands on my sister's wedding day, and it has not vexed you to do it." The king recognized her at once indeed. He had already thought several times how much like his poor little Miranda she was. "Oh, my dear daughter," he cried, kissing her, "can you ever forget my cruelty? I ordered you to be put up to death because I thought your dream important for the loss of my crown, and so I did." He added, "For now your sisters are both married and have kingdoms of their own, and mine shall be for you." So saying, he put his crown on the princess's head and cried, "Long live Queen Miranda." And all the court cried, "Long live Queen Miranda." After him, the young queen's two sisters came running up and threw their arms round her neck and kissed her 1,000 times. And then there was such a laughing and crying, talking and kissing all at once, and Miranda thanked her father and began to ask after everyone, particularly the captain of the guard, to whom she owed so much. But to her great sorrow, she heard that he was dead. Presently they sat down at a banquet, and the king asked Miranda to tell them all that had happened to her since the terrible morning when he had sent the captain of the guard to fetch her. This she did with so much spirit that all the guests listened with breathless interest. But while she was thus enjoying herself with the king and their sisters, the king and the sheep was waiting impatiently for the time of her return, and when it came and went, and no princess appeared, his anxiety became so great he could bear it no longer. "And hello, Miss Chloe, how do you do? Welcome, reader, how are you? Thank you so much for the lovely raid, Miss Chloe. And hello, Lanky Cat and Overdog, and Lethargic, hey, and Bowercom and Episode, and hello, in a dark corner. Oh, not often, not often. How are you, how are you? quite nearing the end of a little story here. Might be a lot to recap. There's like 4 paragraphs left. Let me just talk in between a little bit first. I'm alright, I'm doing well. I'm doing good. It's a bit scuff of a stream, but it's quite a norm here, so nothing all too weird. Just moved my whole PC setup to this new room, so not everything is really up to standard. My ring light isn't currently charging, so it's currently off, since the cable I have for it no longer reaches my PC in the setup. So that's slightly problematic, but well, alright. At least I do have sunlight, but that's just natural lighting from the sun there, which I need to get blackout curtains for again. Quite a lot to do still, but thought I'd stream a bit first. And well, it looks good enough, I suppose. You know what I could do, since the sun in the background is on the right, let me just flip this, why don't I? What is that? Is that vertical or horizontal flip? It all depends on what part you're flipping. I'll try vertical. Nope, it was horizontal. Don't mind me, I know what horizontal and vertical means. There we go. Right, very true. Should do some proper shout outs, I miss. It probably has a cooldown, I don't know how long. But yeah. For everyone who doesn't already follow the lovely Miss Chloe ASMR, go give her a follow. And of course the cooldown doesn't apply to me. But yeah. For all also don't follow the lovely Farjek, go give her a follow as well. Right, let me see, recap a little bit of the story. Basically just finishing it up, but there was a king with 3 daughters, one of whom Miranda had, let's just say had been exiled. Let's just say it that way. Let's put it that way, she had been exiled. But after a while she recently returned with the wedding of her sisters. And the last of her 2 weddings of her sisters, she revealed that she was the long-lost exile to their daughter and a king. There went some time over it, so of course she wasn't recognized at first. And the other daughter, having been married off, made the king give her the kingdom, basically. I don't know how royalty works, but apparently that way. So that's basically whereabouts we're at. Just quick and information-full, I hope, recap. So just finish up the last couple of paragraphs. Let me see. And the wonderful sheep, who will be the king of the sheep also, was the one she was with for a while, while she was exiled or excommunicated from her family. And they just noticed that she hadn't been back in a while. And she's not coming back anymore, he cried. The miserable sheep, his face displeased her, and without Miranda were left for me, Wretched creature that I am, how cruel ago my punishment is complete. For a long time he bewailed a sad fate like this, and then, seeing that it was growing dark, and that still there was no sign of the princess, he set out as fast as he could in the direction of the town. When he reached the palace he asked for Miranda, but by this time everyone had heard the story of her adventures, and did not wonder to go back again to the king and the sheep. So they refused sternly to let him see her. In vain he begged and prayed them to let him in, though his entreaties might have melted hearts of stone, they did not move the guards of the palace. And at last, quite broken-hearted, he fell dead at their feet. In the meantime the king, who had not the least idea of the sad thing that was happening outside the gate of his palace, proposed to Miranda that she should be driven in a chariot all around the town, which was to be illuminated with thousands and thousands of torches, placed in windows and balconies, and in all the grand squares. But what a sight met their eyes at the very entrance of the palace! There lay her dear, kind sheep, silent and motionless upon the pavement. She threw herself out of the chariot and ran to him, crying bitterly, for she realized that a broken promise had cost him his life, and for a long, long time she was so unhappy that they thought she might die too. So you see that even a princess is not always happy, especially if she forgets to keep her word, and the greatest misfortunes often happen to people just as they think they have obtained their heart's desires. Also, just noticed in this collection at the end of the story, they've been putting the name of the author. Why name? Well, this one was by Madame Dulnoy. Something like that. And let me see, it's getting very warm in this room now, with my PC trying to get rid of all the heat in it, but there not really being much of a way out from here. So I don't want to end this early after a raid, so I'm gonna do one other story, then a bit of tongue run, and probably not too long after that. I'm kind of starting to melt here, so if you see my body slowly dissipating and melting, it's getting pretty hot. Maybe not the best clothing choice either, black, but yeah. Did never say I am a smart man. Actually, you will quite often hear me say the opposite. Quite well. But alright, let me jump into one other short little fairy tale. The Goose Girl. Once upon a time, an old queen whose husband had been dead for many years had a beautiful daughter. When she grew up, she was betrothed to a prince who lived a great way off. Now, when the time drew near for her to be married and to depart into a foreign kingdom, her old mother gave her much costly baggage and many ornaments, gold and silver, trinkets and knickknacks, and in fact everything that belonged to a royal trousseau. For she loved her daughter very dearly, she gave her a waiting maid also. She was to ride with her and hand her over to the bridegroom, and she provided each harem with a horse for the journey. Now the princess's horse was called Ferlara and could speak. When the hour for departure drew near, the old mother went to her bedroom and taking a small knife she cut her fingers till they bled. Then she held a white rag under them, and letting 3 drops of blood fall into it, she gave it to her daughter and said, "Dear child, take great care of this rag. It may be of use to you on the journey." So they took a sad farewell of each other, and the princess took the rag in front of her dress, mounted her horse, and set forth on the journey to her bridegroom's kingdom. After they had ridden for about an hour, the princess began to feel very thirsty, and said to her waiting maid, "Pray get down and fetch me some water in my golden cup out of yonder stream. I would like a drink." "If you're thirsty," said the maid, "dismount yourself and lie around by the water and drink. I don't mean to be your servant any longer." And the princess was so thirsty that she got down, bent over the stream and drank, for she wasn't allowed to drink out of a golden goblet, and she drank. As she drank, she murmured, "Oh heaven, what am I to do?" And the 3 drops on the stained lower rag replied, "If your mother only knew, her heart would surely break in 2. And hello, Roy boy, how do you do, how do you do? Welcome, welcome, how was your stream, and welcome, raiders. Hey, I see you're in, how are you? Let me quickly see. How was your stream, Dory? Hope it was well. Hello, hello. Right, let me see. My board wants to work with the shout out there. Yeah, there we go. First time trying out Elder Scrolls Online. Interesting, interesting. Hope you enjoyed. Oh, nice, very nice. Well, I hope you enjoy. Just reading some fairy tales today. Oh, I think you see her in the worry. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Oh, actually, with my accent, I don't pronounce anything correctly. And Nasenheimer, thank you for giving lovely Miss Chloe a song. She's still around. Don't forget to give the lovely Nasenheimer a thank you. Let me see, let me just drop some follows around as well. Never. Looking for some stuff to watch. Ooh, one of many Andrews, eh? Alright, let me make sure to stay hydrated. Let me jump back into the story for anyone who just joined, where was reading The Goose Girl, apparently a fairy tale from a small collection that I've got opened up. Just about a princess setting off on a journey. But the princess was meek and said nothing about her maid's rude behavior, and quietly mounted her horse again. They rode on their way for several miles, but the day was hot, and the sun's rays smote fiercely on them. So the princess was soon overcome by thirst again. And as they passed a brook, she called once more to her waiting maid. "Pray get down and give me a drink from my golden cup." For she had long ago forgotten her maid's rude words, but her waiting maid replied more heartily even than before. If you wanted the ring, you can dismount and get it. I don't mean to be your servant. Then the princess was compelled by her thirsting it down, and bending over the flowing water she cried and said, "Oh heaven, what am I to do?" And the 3 drops from the rag replied, "If your mother only knew, her heart would surely break in two." And as she drank thus and leaned right over the water, the rag containing the 3 drops of blood fell from her bosom and floated down the stream, and she in her anxiety even noticed her loss. But a waiting maid observed it with delight, as she knew it gave her power over the bride, for in losing the drops of blood the prince had become weak and powerless. When she wished to get on her horse Falara again, the waiting maid called out, "I mean to ride Falara, you must mount my beast." And this too she had to submit to, and the waiting maid commanded her harshly to take off her royal robes and to put on her common ones, and finally she made her swear by heaven not to say a word about the matter. When they reached the palace, and if she hadn't taken this oath, she would have been killed on the spot. But Falara observed everything and laid it all to heart. And hello, Gobi. Yeah, I just thought I'd switch it up a bit. Get a new background, get a different background sound as well. Should have some audible, waterish wave sounds going right now. I hope it's audible and hopefully filtering out any background noise or trying to keep the background noise from being heard. It should be audible, but I can put it up a little bit, maybe. Hello, quiet seeker, how do you do, how are you? You must have dozed off. Where did you doze off at? I hope you slept well. The waiting maid now mounted Falara and the real bride the worse horse, and so they continued their journey till at length they arrived at the palace yard. There was great rejoicing over the arrival, and the prince sprang forward to meet them, and taking the waiting maid for his bride, he lifted her down from her horse and led her upstairs to the royal chamber. In the meantime, the real princess was left standing below in the courtyard. The old king was looking out of his window, beheld her in this plight, and it struck him how sweet and gentle, even beautiful she looked. He went at once to the royal chamber and asked the bride whither was she and brought with her, and the left was standing in the court below. "Oh," replied the bride, "I brought her with me to keep me company on the journey. Give the girl something to do, that she may not be idle." But the old king had no work for her, and couldn't think of anything, so he said, "I have a small boy who looks after the geese. She'd better help him." The youth's name was Kurtkin, and the real bride was made to assist him in herding geese. Pretty interesting and kind of good trigger word of a name, isn't it? Kurtkin. I don't know, I'm having a hard time pronouncing it correctly, I think, but my pronunciation is interesting nonetheless. I think yes, Kurtkin. I don't know, probably is supposed to be pronounced a bit differently. Put less of an emphasis on the middle, the K than that, I think, but I don't know. Soon after this, the false bride said to the prince, "Dearest husband, I pray you grant me a favour." He answered, "That I will. Then let the slaughterer cut off the head of the horse I rode here upon, because it behaved very badly on the journey. But the truth was, she was afraid lest the horse should speak and tell how she had treated the princess. She carried her point, and the faithful Valara was doomed to die. When the news came to the ear of the real princess, she went to the slaughterer and secretly promised him a piece of gold if he would do something for her. There was in the town a large dark gate, through which she had to pass night and morning with the geese. Uri kindly hung up Valara there, that she might see her once again. The slaughterer said he would do as she desired, chopped off the head and nailed it firmly over the gateway. Early next morning, as she and Kurtkin were driving their flock through the gate, she said as she passed under, "Oh, Valara, 'tis you hang there." And the head replied, "'Tis you pass under, princess fair. If your mother only knew, her heart would surely break in two." And thank you, quiet seeker. How do you do? Hope you're well. And hello, my Furian. How are you? How are you? Good day, good day. And then she left the tower and drove the geese into a field, and when they had reached the common where the geese fed, she sat down and loosened her hair, and unloosed her hair, which was of pure gold. Kurtkin loved to see it glitter in the sun, and wanted much to pull some hair out. Come on now, Kurtkin, you don't pull a lady's hair, that's plain rude. Oh, thank you, Steve. I'm not playing around with it every now and then. Well, to properly play around, I should have my headset on, so suppose I'm not playing around right now. But then, I think that's the original princess, right? It just says then she spoke, but then the princess spoke. "Wind to wind, gently sway, blow Kurtkin's head away. Let him chase over field and wold, till my locks of ruddy gold, now astray and hanging down, be combed and plaited in a crown." I love the little rhymes in there. Oh well, don't do it all too often, my Furian, but I do enjoy just chilling and relaxing, and I can combine it with the reading a bit. And thereafter a gust of wind blew Kurtkin's head away, and he had to chase it over hill and dale. When he returned from the pursuit, she had finished her combing and curling, and his chance of getting any hair was gone. Kurtkin was very angry and wouldn't speak to her, so they herded the geese till evening and then went home. The next morning, as they passed under the gate, the girl said, "Oh, Valara, 'tis you hang there." And that replied, "'Tis you pass under, princess fair. If your mother only knew, her heart would surely break in two." Then she went on her way till she came to the common, where she sat down and began to comb out her hair. Then Kurtkin ran up to her and wanted to grasp some of her hair from her head, but she called out hastily, wind, gently sway, blow Kurtkin's hair away. Let him chase over field and wold, my locks of ruddy gold, now astray and hanging down, be combed and plaited in a crown." Then a puff of wind came and blew Kurtkin's head far away, so that he had to run after it, and when he returned she had long finished putting up her golden locks, and he couldn't get any hair. So I watched the geese till it was dark. But the evening when they got home, Curdken went to the old king and said, I refuse to herd geese any longer with that girl. For what reason? Asked the old king. Because she does nothing but annoy me all day long, replied Curdken, and he proceeded to relate her iniquities, and said, every morning as we drive the flock through the dark gate, she says to a horse's head that hangs on the wall, O Lara, 'tis you hang there, and the head replies, 'tis you pass under, princess fair. If your mother only knew, her heart would surely break in two. And Curdken went on to tell what passed on the common where the geese fed, and how he had always to chase his hat. The old king bade him go and drive forth his flock, as usual next day, and when morning came he himself took up his position by the dark gate, and heard how the goose girl greeted Falara. Then he followed her through the field and hid himself behind a bush on the common. He soon saw with his own eyes how the goose boy and the goose girl looked after the geese, and how after a time the maiden sat down and loosened her hair that glittered like gold, and then repeated, Wind, wind, gently sweep the Curdken's head away. Let him chase over fjord and wold till my locks are running gold. Now astray and tying down, be combed and plaited in a crown. Then a gust of wind came and blew Curdken's head away, so they had to fly over hill and dale after it, and the girl in the meantime quietly combed and plaited her hair. All this the old king observed, and returned to the palace without anyone having noticed him. In the evening, when the goose girl came home, he called her aside and asked her why she behaved as she did. I may not tell you why, how dare I confide my woes to anyone, for I swore not to by heaven, otherwise I should have lost my life. The old king begged her to tell him all and left her no peace, but he could get nothing out of her. At last he said, Well, if you won't tell me, confide your throat to the iron stove there. And he went away. Then she crept to the stove and began to sob and cry and to pour out her poor little heart, and said, Here I sit deserted by all the world. I, when a king's daughter, and the false waiting maid has forced me to take off my own clothes and has taken my place for my bride and groom, while I have to fulfill the lowly office of a goose girl. If my mother only knew, her heart would surely break in two. Oh, nice quiet secret. I'm glad you like it. Well, I don't know. I'm just droning on. Glad you like it. Hope it's relaxing a bit. I hope those games are going well. But what she didn't know was that the old king stood outside at the stove chimney and listened to her words. Then he entered the room again, and bidding her leave the stove, he ordered the royal apparel to be put on her, in which she looked amazingly lovely. Then he summoned his son to reveal to him that he had got a false bride, who was nothing but a waiting maid, while the real one, in the guise of the ex-goose girl, was standing at his side. The young king rejoiced from his heart when he saw her beauty and learned how good she was. And a great banquet was prepared, to which everyone was bidden. The bridegroom sat at the head of the table, the princess on one side of him and the waiting maid on the other, but she was so dazzled that she didn't recognize the princess in her glittering garments. Now when they had eaten and drunk and were merry, The old king asked the waiting maid to solve a knotty point for him. What, said he, should be done to a certain person who has deceived everyone? And he proceeded to relate the whole story, ending up with, now what sentence should be passed? Then the false bride answered, she deserved to be put stark naked into a barrel lined with sharp nails, which should be dragged by 2 white horses went down the street till she died. You are the person, said the king, and you have passed sentence on yourself, and even so it shall be done to you. And when the sentence had been carried out by the young king was married to his real bride, and both reigned over the kingdom in peace and happiness. And that explains the darker turn that got in that final little bit. That story was by the Brothers Grimm. Yeah, their fairy tales are a bit of an edge to them sometimes. Although honestly, a lot of the fairy tales in this collection so far have some interesting parts to them. That would be like, that doesn't sound quite fairy. Very suitable for children. But they are fairy tales. Fairy tales aren't per se child stories, I suppose, or children's stories. So, I suppose there's a difference. But alright, I think with that little story, I'll swap on over the tone drum for a bit and then end it on that. Also, hello, Harry Legionary and Dandy Magic Sword, how do you do? Sorry, I've read your message already, Harry, but distracted brain sometimes. And yeah, I listen to ASMR sometimes whilst just gaming. Not that I have time often for gaming, but when I do, I usually have a stream open on the site. Just nice and relaxing, and it helps focus, I'm pretty sure. But alright, let me mute for a little bit to set up for a bit of tongue drum to end that day, or to end that stream for a day. It'll just be a short stream today. Setup is a bit scuffed and I need to kinda go get it all fixed, honestly. And it is getting quite hot in this room, with the sun shining quite on it, so. But give me a sec to grab the tone drum to swap over to that for a little bit. Little bit being probably at least 20 minutes or so. Make sure as well that the volume is good. So just having it feed back to my headset as well. Just put the gear up a little bit. And that way I can speak from further as well. Let's see how that is volume is. I think that's good. Let me just get that set back up real quick. Just get that jamming for a little bit. Yeah, there's my theory. It's still the one. We should add a command for it, to be honest. Let me... I can grab it real quick. This will be... That's the one I've got. It's from a Dutch manufacturer though, so if you're not in that, I do think they do worldwide shipping, but outside of Netherlands may be costly if they do. So I don't know, but this will be the one. Nice, miss, nice. thought I heard that. So yeah. My dad just brought me dinner a bit early, but you know, it is, gotta know it is a tongue. But let me not let it get cold. Since it was ending anyways, let me just quickly look for someone whose life. Thank you, Mofjurin. Let's have a quick look. Oh, Bimbo's life. I think I'll just give her a raid then. She's lovely, and I don't really see any much else life. Oh, right, I forgot my title. Great title that is, isn't it? Malinga's life too, but I don't know her too well. So, let me just start a raid over to Bilbibo. Yeah, Mofjurin, it was nice seeing you around. Whilst the raid runs, let me grab the tongue room again, hold on. And just play whilst the timer on the raid runs out. So thank you all for having been there today. And I hope to see you all some other time. Hope you all enjoy the lovely Bilbibo ASMR. Take care all, take care. And I'll just play a little bit longer. Herald, take it. And quickly put my headset on. Make sure I don't miss anything.